Hello, everyone. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. I hope you guys are all having a great time treating your mom well, giving her breakfast, and maybe you've made gifts for her, or bought gifts for her, or have made a card for her, or picked some flowers for her. All those special things that are fun to do for your mom on this day. Exciting times. I have a story for you today about a man named Stephen who also worked with the disciples, helped the disciples do their work. The disciples were busy sharing the teachings of Jesus, and they needed help caring for the poor, and Stephen is somebody who cared for poor people. This story is also a sad story, so I know that I'm spoiling the ending by telling you, but Stephen does die at the end. I think sometimes it's good to know that ahead of time. Similar to the way that Jesus died for what he believed in, Stephen also died because of what he believed in. And we call that kind of person, or that person, those people, martyrs, M-A-R-T-Y-R-S. And there are modern day martyrs, people who even lived during the time that we're living in, who have died for things that they believe in. Martin Luther King is an example of somebody who died for what he believed in. So I'm going to share this story about Stephen with you, and then there's a craft that I have to share at the end that will bring more meaning to this story, and will be a fun thing to have, especially at this time of year in the spring, I think. I'll tell you what that is later. Okay, here we go. So let's imagine that we're together and we have a pile of stones, and I'll ask you all to choose a stone, and we're going to place it in a circle. And then we're going to gather around the circle to hear the story. In the early days of the Christian church, there were many poor people. The new Christians remembered that Jesus had taught them to share with those who did not have enough. Every day they gathered with the poor people, shared food with them, and helped them. As more people joined the church, there were more and more needy people. Soon there were so many that the disciples were not able to take care of them and also have time to preach the good news. They decided to choose some people who could help them with this important work, and who could make sure that everyone was given a fair share. 7 new church workers called deacons were chosen. Stephen was one of them. The disciples held a special gathering to bless the deacons and to pray that they would be good and faithful workers for God. So these workers in our church would be people that do this kind of work, and one example is the committee that we have. We have the Mission and Outreach Committee. So you might know some people who are on that committee. Andy Ross is one person. David Walker. Marilyn Potter, who helps with Fishes and Loaves. And then there's all sorts of people that have come from the Goddard community that don't necessarily go to our church that also help with different mission work. When the Welcome Project was here, when we welcomed the McGuett family, there were so many people that helped do that work and help the McGuetts come to Canada and settle into life in Canada. Stephen worked hard every day. He took food to those who were hungry. He spent time teaching and playing with children who had no father. He showed people God's love. Everyone who felt his kindness loved and respected Stephen. The rulers of Jerusalem didn't want the Christians talking about Jesus. They had put Jesus to death. They didn't want anybody believing that Jesus was the Messiah. They sent a message to the disciples, ordering them to stop preaching. They even put some disciples in jail for a while. One day, after the rulers heard that Stephen was still helping people and talking to them about Jesus, they became very angry. They began stirring up people against him. Some people were persuaded to tell lies about Stephen. Stephen is saying things against Moses and against God, they said. Why are you confusing the people? The rulers asked Stephen. Why do you keep talking about Jesus when you have been ordered to stop? Stephen stood there quietly in front of the rulers. He tried to explain to them that they were not living in the way the prophets had taught them to live. He told them that God had shown everyone the right way to live by Jesus' example. Stephen was very brave. He told the rulers that they needed to listen to God and to start obeying God's word again. This made the rulers almost absolutely furious. Their anger spread out to the mob of people who gathered. Yelling and full of rage, the mob grabbed Stephen. They dragged him outside the city gates. Then they started throwing stones at him. Some of them yanked off their coats so that they could throw more easily. They threw the coats in a pile at the feet of a young man named Saul, who was standing nearby. Stephen realized that he was going to die. God, please forgive them, he called out in prayer. They don't understand what they are doing. The people kept throwing more and more stones. They killed Stephen. Saul, one of the religious leaders, watched the stoning. When Stephen was dead, he said to himself, Stephen deserved to die because he kept teaching about Jesus. We need to get rid of these Christians. We know that Jesus wasn't anybody special, and he was certainly not the Messiah. Saul and the other rulers were sure that they were doing the right thing. Stephen's friends cried as they buried his body. It was hard to believe that someone who had done so much good work and helped so many people experience God's love could be killed like that. They would miss him dearly, but they also knew that Stephen was with God now, like Jesus was. That made them feel happier and able to continue to teach about Jesus. The stones used to kill Stephen were just ordinary stones, maybe even stones that children had used in their play. They became weapons when chosen by an angry mob of people. And these stones that I have chosen to use with you today were just ordinary stones until I chose them and put them in a circle. And then they look special, they become special to us. So let's honor Stephen's life by using our stones to build a cairn. A cairn is a pile of stones that is often made as a memorial to someone special. It's like the altar Abraham and Sarah made to honor and thank God for bringing them into the land of Canaan, which we heard about in Lent. So that's a difficult story to tell, and also a difficult story, I'm sure, for you to hear. One of the important messages to take from it is to remember Stephen's strong and confident faith and to use that as inspiration. The symbol of the rock cairn that we just created can be a symbol of that strong and confident faith. So if you had Stephen's strong and confident faith for a day, and maybe you already have faith that's as strong and confident as his, what would you do with it? Who would you stand up for? Is there anything that you feel inspired to do that you want to change in the world? So think about that. Think about what you would do with Stephen's strong and confident faith. Now, the craft that we're going to move on into is transforming those rocks and making them into expressions of that strong and confident faith. What kind of words do you need to help you sustain or to give you the feeling of faith? What are some of the words that Jesus taught or teaches? And remember the kindness rocks that we did a couple of weeks ago? What kind of words did you put on there? You could add some of those words to your rocks, and then we can include them in a special garden that you're going to create and put in your home. At least for now, until the weather gets a bit warmer, and maybe you could put it outside, or maybe you could put parts of it outside. You can decide what you're going to do with it. So I have some things. Do you guys have a collection? I have a big collection. Anyway, you can use shells that you found. I found this one at the lake. Other bigger rocks that you found. Maybe you want to gather some sticks. And also, you can use some seeds. You can use grass seeds. So you could, in your rock garden, we'll put dirt, and you can plant some grass seeds. I've got chia. I'm going to try chia seeds because I had it in the drawer. Sometimes I use chia in different things. So I'm going to try growing some chia. I've got some sunflowers to try, some nasturtiums, got zinnia, some of the things that we planted in our butterfly garden last year. You could even find seeds in your vegetable drawer. You could find, maybe plant a carrot top, the end of the carrot that still has the green part, and plant that in your garden and see if it grows. You could plant inside your peppers if you like peppers, or even if you don't, you can try planting those. See if you can find some seeds. Even seeds inside an apple or seeds inside an orange, you could try planting those. It'd be kind of exciting to see what comes up. So I'm going to move into the craft and show you some pictures of the process. I'm sure you probably know mostly what to do when planting seeds, but I'll show you what I made, and then you can go and make your own. Mine's going to be kind of big. It doesn't have to be that big. You can just find a kind of low container, like a small saucer or whatever you think would be good to put some dirt inside. So let's say a prayer before we go. God, we think of Stephen and people who had strong and confident faith. People like Martin Luther King that we mentioned earlier. Stephen Biko is another name. We thank you that they stood up for their beliefs. We ask for that kind of faith to say what needs saying, to stand up for someone. Give us strong and confident faith in you. Amen. Okay, so we'll move into the craft now, and I just wish you all a good week, and have fun together. Have fun with your mom, your family today. Farewell.